So I'm Rachel, I'm Head of Policy and Campaigns at Target Ovarian Cancer, and I'm just going to use this last little session of the day to talk through our campaigns work in Scotland, and more importantly, how, if you're interested, you can get involved and campaign with us. So I just thought I'd start with a quick rundown of what we mean by campaigning, because it's a word that we use quite a lot in a lot of different contexts. So in this context, we're talking about influencing people. So we want to influence the people who have the power to change things for women with ovarian cancer to do that. And fundamentally, we all need to work together. So we need lots of voices in order to have the impact that we'd like to see. I guess the question around campaigning is, does it ever work? And I'm really pleased to say that it has for Target Ovarian Cancer across the UK. So our campaign has achieved lots of fantastic things, and among them have included safeguarding access to new cancer drugs. So that's been particularly important in Northern Ireland, where we had a lot of success in finally getting the new cancer drugs that Charlie was talking about, the PARP inhibitors, available to women in Northern Ireland, where they just hadn't been before because of the way the different NHSs are set up. Jane touched on this in her beginning presentation, but in England, in November, we had the launch of the first ever nationwide symptoms campaign that featured ovarian cancer symptoms, which has been fantastic and something we want to see across every nation of the UK. We have had some limited success in Scotland, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. And we've also had commitments in England and Scotland that all women have access to the best possible surgery. So a little bit about how we campaign in Scotland. So in order to have our campaigns, we first need to know what we're asking for. So we at Target Ovarian Cancer produce policy reports or positions, and that's essentially our research. So we rely a lot on what you tell us about your experiences, but we also will sometimes look to see what other countries are doing, and that might be across the UK or Europe or indeed the rest of the world, to see if there's anything that we can adopt for the UK that will improve outcomes. Partnership working is a really important part of what we do. We are a relatively small charity in campaigning terms, so where we can work together with other people, all the better. There are a few main ways we do this. So we work in partnership with the Scottish Cancer Coalition, who are a group of around 20 charities, all with a cancer focus, who look to speak with one voice to the government in particular on cancer issues. We're also part of the cross-party group on cancer and the cross-party group in women's health in the Scottish Parliament. And of course, we individually as Target Ovarian Cancer work closely with the government, the NHS and MSPs. So a little bit about our priorities in Scotland. So there are around 4 things at the moment that we're focusing on, though obviously things change, and one of the big things that isn't listed here is COVID recovery, and how can we ensure that cancer services continue to recover from the pandemic and that outcomes aren't affected by any changes that women might have experienced. The big 4 are symptoms awareness campaigns. So there's been some very limited symptoms awareness campaigns in Scotland. Ovarian cancer was part of a campaign called My Survivor, which you may have seen, and that was the first time that ovarian cancer had featured in a nationwide campaign, but we want to go further and we want to have that standalone symptoms campaign. We want everyone who has been referred for suspected cancer to have their cancer either diagnosed or ruled out within 28 days. So that's the standard that everyone should meet. And we know that that doesn't happen all the time for women with ovarian cancer. So we want to make sure that happens. We work very closely with the Scottish Medicines Consortium, who are the body that approve drugs for use in Scotland. So Charlie touched on them earlier in his presentation. And it's really important in those kind of conversations that we hear from women who might have had experience of those treatments under review, so we can put your views and the impact that it might have had on your life to the people making those decisions. And finally, we want to see that everyone with ovarian cancer should have access to specialist surgery. So how can you get involved? Well, our campaigns are nothing without you. We need people to join our network, to tell us about your experiences. So we quite often put surveys out that ask you about your experiences. We did one over June time, which was about experiences in the pandemic, so that we could identify what action might needed to be taken. And out of pandemic times, we run regular campaign events, so events things like in the Scottish Parliament, which I one day hope we'll get back to, and we really need people to come along to those and speak directly to the decision makers about their experiences. And just this month, we've launched a brand new campaign toolkit, which we hope will make it as easy as possible for you to get involved. And in that toolkit, there are a range of options that all have support and information and guidance on on how you can take forward some campaigning on the issues that matter to you. There are a couple of things in the toolkit that are kind of in there as standard, and a big one, which again Jane touched on, is contacting your local representative. So in Scotland, your MSPs are the people that will have the most influence because health is devolved, although sometimes for more cross-cutting issues, it can be useful to contact your MP. We generally will advise one or another, depending on what the campaign issue we're looking at is. So we will quite regularly have templates where we make it as easy as possible that you just need to fill in your name and a couple of details about you, and it'll give you a pre-populated template. And I can see some nodding, so I think some people probably on the call have done this already, which is fantastic. But equally, you can do that outside of our templates if you'd like, and we're here to help you. So if there's an issue, or you've identified an MSP that you really want to contact, get in contact with us and we can help you out to make that as easy as possible. As well as contacting them, it's great to meet with them. So in a little while, we're going to hear from Christine, who's on the call today, who recently met with her MSP, and is going to tell you about that experience and the outcomes of that meeting. Another way that you can get involved is by raising awareness of the symptoms in your local area or within your networks. So one thing that lots of women that campaign with us do is as simple as taking GP surgeries posters of symptoms, or pharmacies, or whatever community places that you have around you where you know people are. And obviously this is slightly more different in COVID times. So one of the ways that we tried to replace that is on social media. If you feel comfortable and are happy to, we get a lot of reach if people just share. We have infographics and things on our Facebook and Twitter that you can consider resharing to your community, so that people who might never have heard of ovarian cancer or any of the symptoms will know what to look out for. You can also do things like write to your local press. So we suggest that you could write to your local paper if you wanted to raise awareness of symptoms, or if you knew of a particular issue in your local area. And again, we as a charity are more than happy to help with those things and can advise you on tactics to take or press that you can contact. And also we want to hear from you and your ideas. So I'm sure there are people on the call who have campaigned, if not in ovarian cancer, but potentially in other areas of their life. So if you've spotted something that you think is really good, or done something that you think we should be doing, please tell us. So that was a lot of words on a screen that I've just done there. So I thought I'd show you some of what our campaigning actually looks like in action here. So this slide we've got in the top right is the launch of our Pathfinder report, which was in 2016, which we held in the Scottish Parliament. And that was a really great opportunity because not only did we get the minister along to that event, we also got lots of MSPs and our supporters. You can see some of them in the photo there, who were able to talk to their MSPs about their experience. And we were able to share the top lines that we want people to raise. And it's always really good just to get face-to-face with someone. Just underneath that is our most recent campaign, which was about the need for early diagnosis in every country of the UK. And we were delighted that we got over 14,000 people sign that campaign, which has meant that decision makers have really started to take notice because they're aware of the swell of opinion that's around this issue. And I touched on a little earlier, but next to them is Rona, and I don't think Rona's on the call, but if she is, she can wave, and I'll apologise for not telling her, and her daughter Michaela, who took part in a video, which was the first time that ovarian cancer was featured in an awareness campaign for the Scottish Government. And I was going to try and share the video, but unfortunately technology has defeated me, but it was a really fantastic video because it featured Rona, her daughter Michaela, and her little, at the time, quite newborn baby granddaughter Nova. And it also meant that we were able to work quite closely with the Scottish Government, so we were able to suggest Rona as a participant, and we've been able to influence how that campaign rolled out. And lastly, but definitely not leastly, in the top corner is a recent newspaper article which featured Christine, who's about to talk to us. Christine has been a fantastic campaigner for us, and I feel like every time we do an event like this, I end up putting Christine to work and asking her to speak, but she assures me she doesn't mind. And Christine recently met her MSP, and as part of the outcomes of that meeting, she was able to secure this local press coverage about her story and also some of the needs for awareness and the symptoms of ovarian cancer, which has just been fantastic. So I'm going to ask Christine to say a few words about what it was like meeting your MSP, and your advice would be to anyone that wanted to do something similar. So over to Christine.
Hi everybody. So during the summer, when Target launched the report on the impact of coronavirus on women with ovarian cancer, they asked supporters to email our MSPs to ask them to share a message on Twitter, encouraging women to see their GP if they had any concerns over the symptoms of ovarian cancer. I'd seen 4 of my MSPs had already responded, so I used the template that Target provided to contact the other 4, and I received 2 positive replies. Target asked if I'd be happy to meet 1 or more of my MSPs, and I said yes, if a bit tentatively. We decided to concentrate initially on the 2 MSPs from the party of government. I contacted Marie Todd, one of my regional MSPs, thanking her for her support and saying that I'd like to discuss the issues further and asking when her next surgery was. About 10 days later, a lady from her office emailed to say that Marie would be delighted to discuss the issues with me and suggested a date. She was pleasant and efficient, and we agreed on a date and a time and how we would conduct our chat. As our Wi-Fi isn't very reliable, I opted for a phone chat. Ryan from Target gave me advice in preparing for the meeting and was always there to answer any queries and just to give me support and encouragement. I started by familiarising myself with the current situation, statistics, etc., and I read the recent report about the effects of the pandemic on ovarian cancer diagnosis and treatment and its recommendations. I also thought about the relevant parts of my story and what made me passionate about campaigning. I asked Ryan to update me on the statistics specific to Scotland, and I also did a bit of research on both of the MSPs that I was hoping to get in touch with, such as the committees they were on, what their personal interests were, etc. I then had a phone call with Ryan to talk through the points, discuss my proposed agenda for the meeting, and see if I could get some tips. It was really helpful. Ryan also sent a summary of our meeting and our discussion afterwards. I made sure that I had a structure and notes for each of the headings I wanted to talk about. I was keen to get across how passionate I feel that survival should not be down to luck, and that how crucial symptoms awareness is. I also wanted to say something about my own experiences and how I got involved with Target ovarian cancer. Above all, I needed to be clear about what I hoped to get out of the meeting and be sure I secured some concrete commitments. Ryan advised on what I should be asking for. Firstly, the need for a standalone ovarian cancer symptoms awareness campaign in Scotland. I had looked at the campaigns already run by the Scottish Government, such as Detect Cancer Early, which included ovarian cancer, and Survivors, which tackled the fear of cancer and featured Rona and her family. I intended to mention how important these were, but still underline the need for a standalone awareness campaign. Secondly, I wanted to ask her to write a letter to the Health Secretary outlining the key findings and recommendations of Target's report. So I had my notes and my headings in front of me, and I'd gone over it so often that it was well and truly in my head, but I was still a bit nervous and I worried that I'd get into a muddle or forget something. In the end, she was sympathetic and supportive and put me at my ease. We had a very enjoyable and productive conversation, which lasted almost an hour. Although she is at present Minister for Early Years, I think her background in the NHS as a mental health pharmacist means she has experienced the NHS from the other side, so to speak, and has an awareness and experience of some of the issues I brought up. We had a general chat about the effects of the pandemic on the NHS, and she brought up many of the points I was about to raise. She was very aware of the general impact of the pandemic on mental health issues and support. The downside of this flowing conversation was that we weren't following my planned structure, so I had to make sure at the end that I'd covered the main points. She suggested she get in touch with her contacts in the local media to help raise awareness, and said that in normal times she would offer to host an event in Parliament, which I still might hold her to in the future. I asked if she'd write a letter to the Health Secretary, and she thought it was an excellent way to bring forward points. At the end, she said she'd contact the local press and asked me to send a summary of the main points I wanted included, and also the key points for the letter to the Health Secretary. Target helped me with this, and I sent a follow-up email thanking her for taking the time to chat, summarising the main points of our conversation, and providing her with the information she'd requested. Thanks to her contacts in the media, the local newspaper ran a story on ovarian cancer a few weeks later. So, what would I say to anyone who wants to do the same? Well, my MSP told me during our chat that a constituent getting in touch was the best thing from her point of view, as it made your issues stand out from the many issues that arrived on her desk. She also said is the kind of work that she prefers. Being prepared is crucial. Do some research, ask for help from Target, or look at the new campaigns toolkit. Show you know what's already been done and acknowledge how important it is, maybe butter them up a bit, before telling them what else you would like done. Write notes, highlight main points or headings, but don't worry if you forget something. Above all, make sure you're clear about what you want them to do. But just be yourself and show how much this means to you. The personal angle is good. I think it's also important to remember what it says on the Parliament website. They work for you. As a constituent, it's completely normal to ask them for help or support. It's part of their job. Yet, you'll probably be a wee bit nervous, but don't be in awe. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Christine, for agreeing to do that. And also, Christine has been very busy for us because we also asked her to appear on Channel 4 News for us on Friday night, which I don't know if anyone saw, talking about a new blood test that had been made available in England. So a huge thank you to you, Christine, for everything that you do. And I think your last point is, I'm just going to try and get my slides back, just bear with me. I think your last point is so key, that your representatives are there for you, and they are there to represent you and your concerns. So if there is something that you would like to raise for them, we really want to support you in doing that. So I'm just going to finish before we might have a bit of time for questions if anyone has one. So we're quite a small team. So there's me and there's Ryan, who Christine mentioned, and you can contact us on the email address that is on the screen. You can also use the web link to access our brand new campaigns toolkit and also sign up to become a campaigner. So if you're at all interested, or you have any questions coming out from today that either we don't have time to get to or you don't want to ask right now, please do drop us a line and we'd be really delighted to hear from you.